Hey there, this is episode 100 of the first 10 minutes. I'm Tony Parmenter.
I'm Steve Halliwell.
I'm Aaron Williams.
And I'm Nick Starczyk.
Whoa, what's happening?
Intruder.
It's the world's gone topsy-turvy. Welcome aboard, Nick.
What's going on?
Yeah. So Nick is joining us as a special guest star. I believe this is the third guest that we have had on the program in 100 episodes.
Not
Nick,
bad.
do you just want to just do a little bit of a spiel about who you are and how you fit into this madness?
Sure. So these three gentlemen actually taught me through uni. I'm a newly graduate. I worked with Define on Hand of Fate 2, and
I wonder how that might relate to the nature of the episode.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Let's find out, because I'm curious about exactly what we're doing here. This is a video games podcast where we play the first 10 minutes of a video game. Then we sit down here to discuss how well that game communicates itself to the player, both in terms of what the game is about and how to play the game. And in response to our latest listener poll, which you can find at the first 10 minutes on Twitter, we didn't give you any choice at all. We just told you that we're playing Hand of Fate 2, and you're just going to have to deal with it. Oh, man.
gross.
I'm laying down aces here right at the beginning.
Fuck off.
So, are you saying these jokes don't suit you, Aaron?
That is correct.
You haven't got the heart for it? Anyway, I'm going to be running this show this evening because all four of us played Hand of Fate 2, so there's going to be a big old jumble of experience and people pitching in, so I'm going to try and keep us on the rails. But first of all, I'm hoping that somebody else was way more prepared than me and has Wikipedia.
Yeah, I got that stuff. Yep.
Steve, take it away.
Woo!
All right, so you'll be pleased to know that there is currently no Wikipedia entry for Hand of Fate 2.
Whoa.
Oh shit!
Man, we are
Unprecedented.
ahead of the zeitgeist.
Should we do a cursory Google of Hand of Fate 2 then?
So I have results for cursory Google.
Okay.
Nice.
And so, in the absence of a Wikipedia article, Google is like, do you want to know what Giant Bomb thinks of it? I'm like, yes, I do. So Giant Bomb, standing in for Wikipedia here as the authoritative source, tells us that Hand of Fate 2 is a roguelike action RPG developed and published by Defiant Development for PC, Mac, Linux, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4. It tells us that, like its predecessor, the game combines CCG deck building with tabletop storytelling and real-time combat. The sequel expands on the gameplay of the original while adding new weapon styles, new mini-games, and challenge-based progression system, and companion characters who join the player in battle or affect the rules of the board.
A remarkably thorough analysis, Steve.
It's
It's a lot of stuff.
It is a lot of stuff, and interestingly, normally the Steam tags are a nightmare, but get ready for this.
Okay.
So Steam, on the other hand, says, a new hero rises to challenge the dealer in Hand of Fate 2! Master a living board game of infinitely replayable quests. Unlock new cards, build your adventure, then defeat your foes in brutal real-time combat! Draw your cards, play your hand, and discover your fate! And Hand of Fate 2 is an action indie RPG card game roguelike single player. That's it.
Well, it is pretty hot
Shit.
off the press, so I'm sure there's more Steam tags coming down the pipeline.
Yeah. Give it
I sense a great soundtrack coming down the pipeline because it's pretty darn good.
Nice. So, yes, we need to put all our cards on the table here. Sorry, I'm not going to stop. This game was made here in Brisbane. We know the developers of this game. As Nick was saying, Nick actually worked on this. Many of us went to the launch party for this game, which was last night. But I think it's worth clarifying that this is not a review, and also we are totally unbiased. So we're going to pick this. We're going to pick this opening 10 minutes apart. Who would like to paint a word picture as to how this thing begins? Oh, look at all of this. There's lack of volunteers. Aaron, does Springsteen have a song about about how this game opens.
You know what? Springsteen actually wrote something that's pretty damn close to
Yeah.
to what we're looking at in terms of a beginning for this.
Right.
Just let me go right ahead and bring up them song notes. All right, are you gentlemen ready for this?
I am. I think this is a nice inversion of the usual pattern.
It is.
Yeah, this is. We're front loading with Springsteen, and we're getting the shit that you came here for out of the way first.
Puns and Springsteen. That's
Puns
what we're all
and
about
Springsteen.
here.
That's all you want from us, you lecherous audience. Just kidding. You're great. So this is what Springsteen had to say about Hand of Fate 2. Well, I'm sitting in this wagon, playing death with none to lose. Hands must be played, fate must take shape. This here blank slate can't refuse.
That's quite lovely.
Thank you. I
Fantastic.
just realised coming off of my sinusitis, I shouldn't have done that voice. Excuse me for a second while I cough a lung up.
All right. So how about I paint us a word picture here? Once you hit start game in this game, you get a nice sort of shot looking out of a window. As Aaron / Springsteen just indicated, you're in some form of wagon, which is revealed as the camera pulls back. And it sort of glides across a world map, which is not unlike the opening credits of Game of Thrones, which I don't think is a stylistic accident. It seems quite intentional. So there's a world board laid out here, has a variety of geological features and trees and mountains and lakes and so on it. And over the top of this, you hear a character who it is revealed is the dealer from Hand of Fate 1, who is giving a little bit of introductory dialogue. Now, the voice performance of this particular game was by a gentleman named Anthony Scordi, is very, very good. And I don't think any of us have any chance of replicating just how great this sounds. So if you do want to get the sort of full impact of all of these sorts of things, we very strongly recommend that you check out our YouTube channel and watch the gameplay video that will be there, or in fact just watch any of the streaming that'll be happening for this on Twitch, and listen to the vocal delivery. There is an enormous amount of dialogue in this game, both spoken and written. And I think with four of us here to converse, it's going to take even longer if we just try and narrate every piece of dialogue.
Yep, nope.
Yeah.
So we probably shouldn't do that.
Nope.
But in essence, what the dealer is saying here is that it's time to play the game of life and death again.
Yep.
You get a bunch of cards sort of floating through the air. The camera pans across. You see the dealer sit down. It looks like the interior of, I mean, if we're going to generalize, a gypsy-ish style of wagon. And what is clear from the appearance of the dealer, if you're familiar with Hand of Fate 1, is that the dealer looks a lot older.
Mm.
Oh,
Like a lot older. Weathered and wrinkled. And
and like they have some sort of magical disease.
Yeah.
yes, possibly.
Growing up
yes.
their arm.
Yeah.
Yep. Pardon me.
They look in a worse state than they were in Hand of Fate 1.
Yep. So the dealer indicates that time is short and that you have much to learn. And then you are presented with your first choice. So two cards appear floating on either side of the dealer's face. The dealer is peering at us intently. And these two cards indicate either a male character or a female character. I picked female. What about the rest of you gentlemen?
I pick female.
Yep.
I pick female.
Uh-huh.
And I picked female.
Right. So we all made a choice.
Mm-hmm.
My question for everybody is, what is the default choice in terms of the way that this game presents the options?
So I had reading like left to right. It was the female-looking card on the left and the male-looking card on the right.
Yep, that was the same for me. It was female left, male right.
The same for me as well.
I was different. I had male left and then female right.
Oh my.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This is randomized.
But naturally, I went straight to female. It tends to be my thing, so that's what I go with.
Yes, I always tend to play as a. I always tend to play as a woman if the game gives me the option to do so.
Yeah, which I think is something that we've all talked about on this podcast before.
Yeah.
I have a memory of that.
Yeah.
We all tend to be on the same page when it comes to that. For me, it's about video games are an opportunity for me to embody people that are different to me. So when given the opportunity to do so, I will.
Nice. And I think for me, the most memorable example of this was when I played the first Mass Effect game, and I very strongly disliked what the default male character looked like.
Sure.
Right.
And I went, nope, I'm going to go over here and see what else there is to play around with.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
So in this particular case, I also think that the card that you're looking at has like other animals and an environment behind this character. It's not just like a male or female stick figure.
Yes.
And the female card had wolves that look like she's commanding them, perhaps, and a crow, and it appears to be at night.
Yep.
Whereas when I looked at the male card, it looks like he's given a big old hug to a bull.
Yeah, it looks like they're taking a selfie together.
Yeah. Or like they're trying to get each other home from the pub.
That's true.
And so I thought the female card looked much cooler on the face of it too.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So upon making a selection, the camera pulls back. You get a almost sort of like a magic-y "you have made a choice" sound effect.
Yeah.
Something that struck me about the way that the camera rests here is that we're not looking face on to the dealer anymore. There's a lot more of a rule of thirds sort of composition going on here.
Yes.
Looking obliquely across the table. And there's a considerable amount of rather fine lighting work that's been done in this particular layout. Pardon me. Goodness, we're all sick and we're all spluttering and gasping.
So there's a lot of things in the periphery that are moving as well that I noticed.
Yep.
It's like there are vials or like tinkards on the side of the walls of the caravan.
Yep.
That are sort of like rocking, and if you there's a glass door sort of straight ahead of where you're looking, so it looks like the caravan's actually in motion.
Yeah.
You can just see enough of the outside to get a sense of movement. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
And
good.
a nice little
sorry.
flickering green candle as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that sort of stuff's cool because like that helps in communicating the idea that not only are you journeying towards some sort of destination in the game that you're playing, but you're literally on your way to a destination as well.
Yeah, totally.
The other thing that I noticed watching my footage back is that your token that represents your position on the board
Yep.
is dead center of the screen
Yep.
once the camera settles.
Nice.
And the dealer gestures to these cards that have been arranged on the table and says, "These cards represent your history and our game." Now, Aaron, I'm going to pick on you.
Do it.
I'm going to pick on you specifically.
Yes.
With that one simple sentence, what is being illustrated and implied?
So hit me with that sentence again.
These cards represent your history and our game.
Yeah, so what that's communicating to me is the idea of like this game is collecting a series of events, maybe past, maybe present, that you've engaged with leading up to this moment. Because I mean, like that's the thing, right? It's like you don't know anything outside of this room in terms of what's happening in this universe. So what's being communicated to me is that there is a collection of history that exists inside of this that we're potentially revisiting to move towards some form of maybe new conclusion.
Right.
That is going to be distributed into like uniquely based on this particular instance of the game that we're playing.
Yeah.
So I feel like
Sorry, go on.
I feel like I'm going to be taken on a series of memories of things that I've engaged in the past.
Yep. So the dealer continues and says, "We know where they end, for you are here." So there's this curious sort of overlap of, are you at the end of the journey? Are you at the beginning of the journey? Are you in the middle of the journey? What sort of sense were you getting at this point of the game, Aaron?
I mean, like, I'm always someone that really, like, my ears prick up and I get really excited at the idea of non-linear time.
Right.
So that's immediately where my mind jumps to, is that
Right.
we could be moving spatially we could be moving in a completely different manner here.
Yep.
We could be in some form of suspended animation as far as time's concerned. And so with this idea of like this goal that I'm working towards, this fated destiny that I'm on my way to, it could be that all other sense of time and history has to be put on hold for a second while we work that out, while we work out where we're going. So is this past, is this present, is this future? The answer is yes.
And what do you think? Typically, we don't tend to talk about games in reference to other games, but I think it's worth pointing out that the location here in Hand of Fate 2 is rather different from where you sit with the dealer in Hand of Fate 1.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Hand of Fate 1, you sort of feel detached from time and space because you're sitting in kind of an abstraction, almost like a temple or something that could
Some
be
sort of
anywhere.
dungeon.
Yeah. Whereas in this one, you're very distinctly sitting in a wagon.
Yeah.
And the game begins with you peering out the window.
Yeah.
And then sort of drawing you back inside into this space.
Yeah.
Nick, I imagine that you have a little bit of a different perspective on this because firstly, you've probably played the start of this game quite a number of times. And secondly, I imagine you have a much better idea of where this is all leading and what it's all about than the rest of us.
So that cinematic intro actually didn't go in until very late, and the first time I saw it was at your PAX panel. Yeah, so it was completely new to look at. Like I knew the interior and everything, but I think for me, the biggest change from Hand of Fate 1 is that this space feels more intimate to the dealer than Hand of Fate 1 did.
Yeah.
For me, it gives us more insight into what the dealer, like what his space is like. Like this is obviously his wagon. He's taking us somewhere.
Okay.
And more so than the first game.
So kind of like what you could be communicating there is that in Hand of Fate 1, you're in the dealer's office, whereas in Hand of Fate 2, you're in the dealer's home.
Definitely in one respect. I think that
Cool.
Pardon me, Steve.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm all right.
What's your take on this? Does this feel like the dealer's home?
I don't know about home, but it definitely feels like the dealer is in his space. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is where the dealer belongs. Whereas I think my read on Hand of Fate 1 was more that this is where the dealer needed to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess the difference here as well could be that given the location of Hand of Fate 1, it feels like you, the player, have reached the dealer.
Yeah.
Where in this case, it feels like the dealer has kind of invited you to be here.
Yeah.
But then that kind of feels a little bit weird when you're talking about, these cards represent your history in our game. And he makes the point that you know where this ends because I've led you to my side. And then there's a bit of a ... there in terms of, well, what happens now? What comes next? Because what we're about to do here as players is we're going to be reliving or re-experiencing or kind of experiencing for the first time, but actually from the past, events that have unfolded. But I'm curious to hear people's thoughts on what the point of doing this exercise is beyond just passing the time during a wagon ride. I'm so glad that I'm running this episode so I get to throw curly questions out.
Figure it out.
Yep. Steve.
So I think I'm reading too much into this, but the vibe I get is this is more of a Jumanji situation. So what I was reading into this is that the game must be played and it must be solved.
Right.
You just have to roll a 4 or 8 for it to be over.
Yeah. That's the situation as I was reading it, of this is why we are playing, is because this game has to be played. Or something much worse is maybe going to happen.
Okay.
Which felt very different to me from Hand of Fate 1, which felt more like you have now earned the right to play the game so that you may have the magic amulet if you win.
Okay. Does anyone have any contrary thoughts to that?
Not contrary. I mean, to embellish that, like there does seem to be a sense of necessity that exists in here that wasn't necessarily present in the first one.
Yeah.
Like an almost there's an obligation for this to be played, and though it's of a similar ilk, the motivation to sit down has changed. Um,
Okay.
and that sort of contributes to the idea of motion, to the idea of a journey. That
Yeah.
we're moving towards something, therefore these actions must be taken.
All right. I gotta. Sorry. Oh, this damn cough. I got a question for everyone. That again, this might be a little bit of a curly one. The dealer has designed this game, right? Within the fiction of this world, we're about to play a game that the dealer has constructed. Is the dealer doing this because they want to, or because they have to?
What about C because they can?
Right. Keep talking, Aaron. I'm curious.
Well, what is like what is in this sense of like if we're removing sense of time, and
Yep.
we're looking at the idea that things could move forward, backwards, stay the same, whatever,
Yeah.
then any sense of obligation to do something kind of goes out the window because
Right.
we tend to act because death is always approaching.
Right.
So if we can get that sense of perspective to see time differently, then
Mm-hmm.
that could shift our sense of obligation. That could shift our sense of how we interact with others and their perceptions of time.
Right.
So having the potential, having the power to stop time and allow it to move in any which direction
Right.
could just naturally instill a sense of, well, let's fuck with people then.
Okay. I'm curious to hear everyone's thoughts then. Are we working on the assumption that this is the same person as the first game?
The
I mean,
same
it's the
person
same.
playing
It's
the
the
game.
same. It's the same voice actor. No,
Yeah.
the dealer.
Right.
Is this the
right.
same dealer?
Right.
I mean,
Yes, I was assuming the same dealer,
Yep.
but later.
right. Because the
I-
implication here, I mean, it's the same voice performer.
Yeah.
It's the same style and manner of speech, and it's clearly a much older character. So if we're going to run with that assumption, I don't think anyone's disagreeing with that assumption yet.
No.
Oh, I'm willing. I'm totally open to this being a completely different person.
Okay. Okay. Keep talking, Aaron.
Yep, I'm completely open to this being an entirely different person because the only thing that we have to go by to date is a pair of eyes that look somewhat similar, clothing that looks somewhat similar, and a voice that is definitely similar.
Uh-huh.
Who's to say that this is the same entity, person, what have you? Who's to say that there isn't a league of dealers that all look similar, that all look relatively similar and have to wear the same uniform or
Right.
a similar type of uniform? Who's to say that this is even taking place in the same universe? There's so
Well,
little that we know at this point.
Well, I'm gonna
Sure.
throw down the gauntlet, and I'm gonna tell you exactly what's going on here.
Okay, go.
As far as
Finally, certainty.
as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, hit us with the cannon.
Sure. So my assumption, based on the things that I'm seeing and that I'm hearing, is that this is the same dealer that I faced off against in the previous game. A considerable amount of time has passed, and whether or not I, as the player sitting down to play this, am a totally different person, it feels to me like the dealer is here because they have to be. It feels like they're doing this because this is their purpose.
Mhm.
And I also get a sense that they're doing it not entirely because it's something that they chose for themselves, but because it is something that was chosen for them or something that was forced onto them. And what I had running through my head as all of these thoughts started bouncing around was, is the dealer trying to free themselves? Are they trying to redeem themselves? Are they trying to exact revenge? All of those feel possible. I don't have any way of gauging an answer to that, but this feels to me like this experience is meaningful for the dealer far more so than it is meaningful for me.
Which is an interesting contrast to the first one, which kind of felt like the opposite.
Yep.
But then also, that's something that exists in a lot of mythology and spiritual texts is that
Yeah.
achieving some sense, because like I continue to like going down the time isn't real
Right.
line of thinking, which it's not a line. Um,
It's a
but
flat circle, Aaron.
that's exactly right. Yeah, and there's
Yep.
always a monster at the end. When you engage with that, like in a lot of mythological structures, when a figure comes to some form of understanding or enlightenment, when it comes to that sort of thing, there's often a sacrifice and there's often a price that comes with that, and oftentimes that sacrifice or price is responsibility that comes along with that understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So this idea of like having an understanding of fate and of history and being able to dole that out to somebody else,
Right.
there is now a responsibility to continue that process.
Okay. Nick and or Steve, thoughts?
I feel that the dealer's obligated to do so. I don't know that he's been tasked to be here.
Right.
I think he wants and he has a sense of need to be here because just like you were saying then, Aaron, about like something's happened and you've got that obligation to do something about it if you were the cause of it, kind of thing. Like it's obvious from looking at the dealer in Hand of Fate 2, he's scarred. It's been 100 years. Shit's happened.
Yep.
Like who's to say he couldn't just bow out and escape it all? But he's back here for a reason, right? He wants to fix that,
Right.
I think. And yeah, that's definitely what I get from this opening segment is that he needs to be here, and without us, the player, here with him, nothing's going to happen.
Right. And Steve, what's your angle on this?
Similar. It feels like the dealer is required to be here for whatever this purpose is.
Mm.
Whether that is finding someone worthy of completing the game so that they can do whatever it is that the extended lore would need them to do,
Right.
or something. I think I read far less into this at the time,
Right.
which, classic programmer. I think all I took from... it's like you were here. I've forgotten the exact line, but like knowing that the dealer knows where this ends up.
Yes.
And so do you.
I think
merely
it's
took that
something along the lines of, we know where this ends they've led you to my side.
Yes.
Yep.
So all I think in the moment, all I read into that was that, they're acknowledging that it's a roguelike and I will play this part of the game dozens of times. And that the dealer knows where this ends up. It's with me dead and starting again.
Yeah.
Right. Goodness me. All right. So, Aaron, you raised the point of mythology.
Yeah.
And sort of mythological structures here.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because essentially when the dealer says, so let's find out what happens, all of a sudden a card called the Fool comes flying up to the screen and comes to rest sort of left of frame. There's a little token, kind of a shiny metal token on the bottom of this card. And I believe the dealer's line is something along the lines of the Fool steps into the light, and then the dealer makes a point that you're a blank slate.
Yes.
So the blank slate thing, whether we want to talk about this in terms of a mythological thing or in terms of game design theory, what does a blank slate allow the player to do? And in addition, what does it allow the game to do? This particular game to do.
So you're addressing that to me?
I'm addressing that to whomever starts talking first. That isn't me.
Embodiment. Carry on.
Yep.
I pass the baton.
Definitely just on the blank slate. I think it allows a player to imprint themselves into the game more than the first did.
Right.
Specifically because the first, you have a name, which is Kalos.
Yep.
This one, you don't have a name. The first choice you're given is, are you male or female?
Yep.
And then you go from there.
Yep. Yeah. But what do you think is trying to be said here by labeling you, the player, as a fool? Or the fool, as it were?
So I've never looked at it as the players being labelled the fool. The amount of times I've gone through it, and even hearing back you guys repeat the line and discuss how you think it is applicable. I've always read the fool just as this is the tutorial challenge. We're going to call it the fool, and that's kind of where I stopped. I didn't really look at it as if where the dealer's calling you out because you're a blank slate and you don't know anything about this game.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's better than going the noob steps forth into the light.
Yeah, definitely, totally.
Like I think more than anything, what this connects to is the idea that like this, like labeling you the fool, and what that represents in terms of tarot is blank slate, and which means that you, as rules are doled out to you, as explanations are made as to where you exist in this universe and what it is that you're doing mechanically, you can just accept that.
Right.
So it's not something in which you need to be given massive lore dumps. It's a sort of thing where it's like, this is kind of like you're a Mad Max Fury Road character.
Right.
Like you understand what's happening because everyone else does.
Right.
And Steve, did you read this fool as in somebody who is unwise?
When I encountered that, I was reading it either as this is this game's version of the challenge deck,
right,
from Hand of Fate 1, or trying to remember what the tarot card meaning of the Fool was, which I could not remember off the top of my head. But I have since gone and looked up and remembered that in Tarancini, the Fool is the best card in the deck.
So you might say
the Fool has no preconceived notions, so beats everything. The Fool is so unaware of what they're doing that they can't be defeated.
Nice.
So the Fool is the Mr. Magoo in this sense?
Sure.
I've just gone and clarified. The dealer says the Fool steps into nothingness because they know no better.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Sure.
So, yep, go on.
I was just going to say, from listening to that, it definitely sounds like it's implying that you are the fool stepping into nothingness.
Yep.
All
right.
Yeah.
So we are now approximately very little of the way into this 10 minutes.
Yes, we need to pick up the pace.
And we've been talking about a number of different things, but in terms of theme and in terms of setting, this is a very evocative location. This is a very intimate one-on-one relationship. And in terms of us as the player being able to express ourselves, we're not able to respond to the dealer. We're not being given any dialogue options in terms of having a conversation with the dealer. The dealer is informing us of things. And in a way, as best as I can read it, is informing us of the state of the world that we're in, but also starting to set things up in terms of what is this game that we're about to be playing and how does it work. So, pardon me. What we end up moving into here now is we actually start playing the game of life and death. So just going to set the scene a little bit here. We're sitting across the table from the dealer. This is a large wooden table with a lot of space on it. And in the middle of this table, the dealer has levitated a bunch of cards that are all face down in an arrangement where there are 3 cards that can be moved through with this little token of our hero. So you move 1 to an adjacent card, sort of 1 move per turn, and we have some stats that we have at our disposal. We have life, we have food, and we have gold. These are represented by cards in the lower left-hand corner. And the very first default position that we find ourselves on has kind of the featured card for this location, which is called Forest Ambush. I believe this is the same for everybody.
Yep.
And that all of the locations in this opening challenge were identical for all 4 of us when we played them. Pardon me. So we're now actually playing the game within the game. And Forest Ambush tells us you've stumbled many miles through this forest in search of the thieves who robbed you. Though exhausted and hungry, you are determined to reclaim your father's Amulet. So, clear player goal, clear player objective. I was quite taken with just how drastically all of the lighting of this environment changed, because the vast majority of the interior of this wagon dims. You can just faintly make out the dealer on the far side of the table, illuminated by a flickering green candle. But it's mainly the tabletop itself that is illuminated so that you can see the cards sitting on the table. And all of the cards that are sort of floating up in game UI space are very bright, very prominent, very easy to read. So you finally catch sight of the thieves hacking at a large tree and arguing among themselves. You're given a couple of options: move closer to eavesdrop or keep your distance. And in the lower right-hand corner, another couple of cards appear, the Four of Greed and the Leader card. My voice is about to give out, so if somebody else is able to take over for a couple of minutes, that would be much appreciated. But the point that I was going to bring up here is that it kind of doesn't really matter which choice you make, because the outcome ends up being pretty much the same. And I was wondering if we could speak a little bit to why are these choices here? Why are we allowed to make this choice?
Yeah, so it's a sort of so you have the choice: move closer to eavesdrop or keep your distance. Both of which, like, they are different, but they're very much engaging with the similar environment in a similar way. And so whichever one you choose, what the game then introduces you to is the classic staple of Hand of Fate 1, which is the 4 cards popping up, each of which determining some form of outcome that can come from this action that you've chosen to do.
Yep.
And I think for all of us, we received 3 success cards and 1 failure card, in terms of like, this is how it could turn out. At which point it then starts to shuffle the decks backwards and forwards. You can keep an eye on which particular card it is that you want to pick, but at a certain point you kind of are left out in the open in terms of what you select.
Right.
So personally, I got a success on my choice. What about the rest of you?
I failed my eavesdrop.
Ooh.
Yep.
What are the odds of that happening, Steve? It was like 1,000 to 1.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Nick, how did you go?
Well, I hid, and then it wasn't until I got my food option that I got my first 4-card Monty.
Yeah.
Yep. I also hid, and a group of farmers came walking down the road, and the 3 of Toil card appears in the lower left-hand corner. So this is already setting up kind of, in terms of visual language, that cards that are in the lower right-hand corner are antagonists, and cards that are in the lower left-hand corner are allies or potential allies, or at least adversaries of the cards in the other corner. Pardon me, the next choice that was offered up before I ended up playing the 4-card Monty was actually a 3-option choice. The thieves fell the tree into the path of the unsuspecting farmers and leap out, weapons brandished. Give us all your food. The options then being leap to the farmers' defense, offer to help the farmers, warning them it won't come for free, or help the thieves with their extortion. This is a triad of choices rather than a simple binary 2-option choice.
Yeah.
Pardon me. I believe that depending on how you sort of start navigating your way through these follow-up options can affect the amount of potential reward that you get at the end of this challenge.
Definitely.
Yep. Nick, you sound very, very adamant about this. Do you know something? That we don't?
Well, maybe. I mean, when I went through this, I typically always go the jerk option.
Okay.
I don't know why. I don't really feel like I'm a jerk, but
it didn't say the jerk, Nick. It said the fool.
Yeah. But yeah, so I went with option 2, which was offer your help, and then stress that it won't come for free. I success my 4-card Monty, and then I think I got double the amount of food game cards that the rest of you got.
I think you ended up with 4, yeah.
Yeah. And altogether, it's over 10 food, and later through this challenge, I'm looking at plus 20. Yeah.
So I chose a similar option. It appears that I am also a jerk. Offered help, warning them it won't come for free. We have no gold, shrieked the terrified farmers. But half our crop is yours if you protect us. And then a couple of cards sort of come shuffling in from the darkness, laying themselves over the corner of the forest ambush card. I believe I had a 7 of food and a 5 of food, which is quite a substantial amount of food. If my math is correct, that's 12 extra food, and I only have 5 in the bank at the moment. The thieves eye you nervously. The farmers look at you hopefully. And the options were accept or ask for more. Nick, do you recall what you did?
I did. I asked for more.
Really?
Of course he did.
Lay it on.
This is where our paths diverge.
Oh, there you go.
Because
so I'm the real jerk.
Yeah.
I just accepted, and then it tells me that I draw my weapon with practice skill. So I'm about to enter combat for the first time. How did the rest of your journeys go up until this point, and how much food is on the table in this particular exchange?
So I just went straight to the farmer's defense.
Yeah, same. I'm boring.
Yeah, I tend to play as lawful good as I possibly can in this stuff. At which point, the leader was like, "You lads handle this. I'll see you at the end." And I received nothing in terms of food or payment. I was just immediately dumped into combat, which I was happy to do.
The chump steps forward into darkness, for they know no better.
Yeah, I mean that's cool. I'll happily be a chump. I'm a heroic chump.
Steve, is that similar to what happened to you?
Yes, it's the same thing that I did.
All right. So the construction of options here in terms of where this leads, it's a similar place. We all end up in combat. We all end up fighting the thieves. We all have the leader run away before we end up fighting.
Yeah.
So the only difference here seems to be how much potential reward there is.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay, cool. Pardon me. I'm so sorry for coughing constantly. I seem to be talking way more than I had anticipated. So something that I did just want to jump on that you said, Aaron, that I think was super interesting, is you used the Dungeons and Dragons term.
That's
saying that you tend to play lawful good whenever you're playing these sorts of things. So, Aaron, are you role-playing? That is a loaded question, but it's an intentionally loaded question.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yes and no. No, in the sense that I don't actually consider myself to have the amount of agency that I would in a traditional role-playing game, and I don't wish for it. But yes, in the sense that I'm being given the opportunity to engineer the direction, or at least like gesture in the direction of where I would like this to go. And whenever presented with a series of decisions as starkly different as that, I tend to just ask myself, what would you like to think that you would do in this situation? And so I tend to go for the most quixotic route that I possibly can.
Right.
Which is fucking justice, decency for all.
Steve, did you find yourself thinking about what you were doing here in terms of a persona that you were building for yourself?
I think I went with leap to their defense because siding with the thieves felt like a dick move. Also, why would I trust thieves?
Well, there's no honor. Oh, hang on, wait, that proves.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Right.
And I'll help you, but it'll cost you. Feels a little bit unfair.
Right.
Like if I was hired as their bodyguard, sure.
Right. And
jumping in front of 4 thieves with my sword brandished and be like, 1 second, need to negotiate terms first. Felt a little bit too Robin Hood Men in Tights for my liking.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Please sign this general agreement before I initiate persistence.
Yeah, I'm gonna need you to sign this waiver.
Yeah.
And Nick, it sounds like you were just like, I think you said you're just playing as a jerk. You're just in full jerk mode.
Yeah, so this is very much the character I'm building. This isn't me imprinting. Like, I would definitely jump to the defense. I wouldn't just go, trying to get all I can. Okay, look. But yeah, definitely, I was playing jerk card, but that's typically what I do in these kind of games.
Okay. So what I was kind of found myself doing in response to the options that I was given was, oh, wait, I can adopt a mercenary, fuck you, pay me kind of mentality. And I'm all for that.
Yeah.
I believe people should be appropriately compensated for their effort.
Yeah.
Which I believe is why I ended up with a reasonable pot of food here, should I happen to succeed. All right, so we all end up in combat. Can somebody who isn't me and dying of a cough talk us through combat and how it works?
So before we get there, the cards that were previously in the foreground get sort of like sucked into the center of the screen to a vortex, like a glowy, bluey, orange vortex. Our camera gets pulled into there as well.
Yep.
So giving this the impression that like maybe the player is being sucked through the cards as well.
Yeah.
Rather than just it being imagined. This looks like it's hiding a load, so we're in like a time travel-y. I know, I'm a programmer. You let me talk. This is your fault. So we're hiding the load by having us travel through a time vortex.
Which also doubles as a very nice Mr. Sherman
very pretty.
and Peabody reference.
Yes, exactly. It should be clocks, but it's cards.
Yep.
I would love it if the dealer says, pardon me while I load the next scene.
We need to conceive this load. We're swapping asset packs as we speak. So we go through the vortex. The load finishes, so that fades out, and the camera sort of swoops down and reveals 4 thugs standing facing camera with large rusty swords drawn. Mm-hmm. And as the camera comes to a rest on them, we get a slide out from the right-hand side.
Yep.
That tells us what they are. So it says thug, and they have like an emblem under them, like a pirate hat with crossed scabbards.
Yep.
And it says violence for the sake of violence and theft for the sake of money. Thieves attack frequently and can evade standard attacks, making heavy weapons less effective. So evade and heavy are proper nouns.
Mm.
And I have a mouse click to continue, but I assume some other people were playing with controllers, so it probably would have been press A.
Oh, you were playing with mouse and keyboards?
Yeah.
I am.
All right. I was controller.
As was I.
Yes, that'll be confusing later when I say press F and you all go, Gah!
Yeah.
So we continue this, and the camera fades to black, fades back out, and now we have some video game action camera. Mm-hmm. So the quick word picture for you. Top left, we have 100 of 100 and a red heart, so I assume that's my health codo from before. On the top right, we have a 0 of 9 and a sword icon. I have what I'm assuming is my character, dead center of screen, slightly below middle, brandishing a sword and shield and like a potato sack looking hood. There are, what I'm assuming are 3 farmers standing to my character's left with pitchforks, and they're all balding, exact same balding pattern. I assume they're brothers. And there are 3 health bars on the right side of the screen. So because there are 3 of them, I'm assuming those are the health bars of the farmers. And I guess if they die, it's less good for me. I'm really not sure at this point. And so basically, like 10 meters ahead of this group of us, there are the 4 thugs. Mm-hmm. And we are going to fight.
So I just want to point out, Steve, that while your 3 farmers were balding, mine were all wearing hoods.
They were wearing hoods?
Yep.
Oh, mine have, how do I describe it? They have like shawls, kind of, in mine.
That's what
they
I
have
had
like
too.
blue shawls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I wanted to point out that mine were wearing hoods is that all the thieves are also wearing hoods.
That would make that more difficult. No, my thieves are hooded people They're actually more ponchoed
Yeah.
than hooded,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you will.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully, sort of the shoulder patterns and coloring were enough to help me distinguish things. But yeah, I was a bit weirded out by the fact that everyone, including myself,
Yeah.
is wearing a hood.
It's a regular Assassin's Creed up in your game.
Anyway, I assume that everybody managed to not die.
We got through it. We successfully Batmaned our way out of this.
Yep. Did anyone lose any of the farmers along the way?
Nah.
I don't believe so.
Right.
So I didn't have any.
Oh, that's right, because you were
Ooh.
in full jerk mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with going full jerk mode, they actually spat at my feet and ran off. So yeah,
Nice.
I'm just looking at the footage now, and I don't have any help.
Well, that's what you get, Nick.
Apparently.
Classic. All right. So
Well, that would make yours harder because my thieves are attacking the farmers, so they're not all trying to kill me. It's
yes,
the same
exactly.
time.
Yeah, it breaks up the combat a little bit to have some other people there to be smacked with swords.
Yep.
Yeah.
I came very
Definitely.
close. I think one of my farmers was getting picked on way more than the others and was getting fairly close to dying because there are sort of health bars for the allies down the left side of the screen.
Yeah. One of mine was on half health,
Right.
but they all survived. So during combat, yeah, it is very Batman-y, for lack of a better term. But it feels more slower and more deliberate than Batman does.
Yeah.
Right.
So all of the actions that your character takes feel like they take far more effort and more weight. And also they're far less interruptible.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in Batman, if you need to, you can sort of cancel out of anything in basically like one frame of animation, pretty much.
Mhm.
Whereas here, you're committed if you make an action.
Yep.
We even get damage numbers popping off of things when we hit them, which
Yep.
I assume will make sense to me later.
So I ended up on 84 health at the end of this, but immediately after combat was concluded, I got given the food rewards, which for me totaled 12 food. So they got added one card at a time. First a 7 of food, and then a 5 of food, bringing my total stack, I believe, to 17.
Yeah.
And then immediately the game consumes one food kind of automatically, which ends up being a trade-off of losing 1 food point but getting 5 hit points back.
Yeah.
So this is a hard force thing that the game does, presumably to inform me that you eat food at the conclusion of combat. But also it turns out every time you move onto a new card on the board that you haven't been to before. And this exchange rate of 1 food to 5 health feels intentional. This doesn't feel like you heal for 1d6 of damage. It's like, no, this is like a Catan thing where you trade 1 of this thing for 5 of this thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I automatically start going, how many potential hit points could I heal myself? And with 16 left in the bank, I have plenty of healing that I could do should I need it later.
I also ended up with 17 and then 16. And the UI actually pops up a -1 green on your food stocks and a +5 red on your life when that consumption happens. And the text readout where you've been making your choices previously also just says you consume 1 food after you come out of combat.
Yep. So the game informs us that even though we have fought these thugs, we have still not retrieved our father's amulet. And there's only one spot on this board layout of cards for us to move to. So you press the A button on the selected card. Your little token that's on the table hops onto the new card. It's turned over, zooms to the top left of screen as like the featured card. And this card is called A Friend in Need and has a picture of a goblin who I automatically assumed was Mr. Lionel from the first game.
Yeah.
Even though I don't believe they're ever named as such, but that's what I like to think in my head. While enjoying a moment beside the fire, you spy a strange figure approaching your camp. It's a goblin, dressed in what must pass for goblin finery. From beneath the filthy fox pelt serving as an ill-fitting wig, the goblin winks at you with wild red eyes. Aaron, how's them words?
They're good words. they're
Continue.
they're economically effective, right? So the thing about this is like this is sort of flavor text. This is flavor text is also serving the purpose of fleshing out for you imagery of these memories that you're reliving or that you're
Yep.
passing through again or that you're experiencing for the first time.
Yep.
So it has to get through it quickly.
Yep.
But then it has to also ensure that every single word, every single phrase is advancing the narrative.
Mhm.
And so this is not an easy thing to achieve. This is something that I imagine went through a lot of different passes. But it's the sort of thing where, like, just by reading these two little paragraphs, you have a sense of the emotional trajectory that you're being taken on. You're given enough description so that you can kind of just paint in the rest of the blanks yourself. This is assisted by the portrait that's beside the text, because your eyes are probably darting back and forth between those two things. But the two combined just kind of gives you everything that you need to then fill in the blanks, as I said.
Yep. I think it's worth pointing out that the card art style is kind of similar to what you might expect a wood carving of this sort of thing to look like.
Yeah, totally.
And that everything is washed in a really lovely kind of sepia and dark brown kind of tone, including the game text.
Yes.
That is actually popping up next to things. So here's a curious topic. Well, here's a topic that I hope instills some curiosity in all of us to talk about. The dealer is sitting across the table from us. This is clearly a meaningful experience that both ourselves and the dealer are going on. The dealer's talking to us. The dealer's informing us as to where we are, kinda, and why we're here, kinda, and what we're doing, kinda. And then they're sort of watching you read. This reading of the text that we, the players, are doing, how do you think that might be manifesting itself within the world itself?
With the AR chip that he has embedded in his head. Or her head.
So is this recall?
Totally.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I think it's the sort of thing, like,
so, Aaron, you've fallen into my cunning trap because
Sure.
you've just said it's recall, but it's all written in the present tense. Discuss.
Well, like it's recall in the sense that, like, you are recalling something that doesn't really exist in time. So
Right.
tense doesn't really matter.
Yep.
Past, present, or future. It doesn't really matter. Like, this is something that you're recalling, but this is also something that could potentially just be written on the card. You just can't see. Like, I think this is something that is just being abstracted out into video gamey type stuff.
Okay. How many of you read/played Choose Your Own Adventure books and or fighting fantasy books, etc.?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
No.
So. Oh man,
Wow.
I feel old.
I
I feel extra old.
Podcast, I feel.
That was the perfect length of pause there, Nick.
It's not through a lack of trying. It's just, it's just never happened.
Right.
Sure.
So the tone of this writing strikes a similar sort of vein to the tone that I recall from those sorts of books. A little more polished and a little more poetic. However, I think, Aaron, you were mentioning before that there is an economy here in terms of the words, the number of words that are being used, and the amount of information that is being conveyed.
Yeah.
But to me, the primary thing that I'm getting from this is that it's colourful, it's evocative, but it's also kind of direct.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's serving a lot of purposes. It's fleshing out the world that's around you. It's also giving you a sense of propulsion in the immediate, and then it's also preparing you for what it is that you're going to be engaging in mechanically.
Cool. So as the dealer watches me read all of this text very patiently, essentially the goblin says that they're going to be able to give me whatever my heart desires. Actually, they can't because there's a giant hole in the sack that they were going to pull these goodies out of. There's a beautiful line here, possibly one of the favorite ones that I read here. His head disappears entirely into the bag and his bulbous nose protrudes from the breech.
Yeah.
Rather lovely.
That's some good
So, Steve, if you were to put your programming hat on,
Okay.
what is this goblin teaching us?
Was the goblin teaching us about
Yes.
programming? Well,
No.
see, everything is variable. Sometimes there are memory leaks. The goblin is. What do I think the goblin is teaching us in terms of? Well, he's about to give you a choice.
Yeah. And the choice is between 3 inventory items
Yeah.
or 3 pieces of equipment or rewards, being the warrior's axe, the
Soldier's
soldier's
sword and a shield.
and the
Yeah,
shield.
all of which
Yep.
have new written in the corner, which I'm presuming means I've never seen them before,
Yep.
or at least I've never seen them in this run before.
Right.
I'm not sure which of those it will be.
Yep.
Um,
So this is a lesser-known P.T. Anderson sequel, There Will Be Loot.
yeah.
Is
New loot.
essentially the game telling us that equipment is a thing, item rewards are a thing. Here's a gimme right here at the beginning of the game, and you only get to pick one.
Yeah, you only get one,
Yep.
but it's also let it like from if you can read the description text before you confirm, so you get to know what the stats are. And the thing that I found interesting here is, if we recall, we got given some information about thugs earlier,
Yeah.
that they evade standard attacks, making heavy weapons less effective.
Yep.
But that was they were proper nouns.
Yes.
And so when we click on these items on the warrior axe, which was on the far left for me, I'm not sure if they were randomized for other people or not.
Yep.
On the warrior's axe tells me that it has critical strike, which appears to be a weapon skill, that it is armor breaker, which gives me some other proper nouns that are sort of bolded.
Yep.
That it is against corrupted enemies, bash causes additional damage to armored. But it also tells me that it's heavy.
Uh-huh.
So I get to see that proper noun repeated there.
Yep.
And it goes on to tell me that it is susceptible to evade and cannot riposte. And down the bottom of that sort of fold-out style GUI that we can see, it tells you the damage that this weapon does, and it says that this does 21 damage.
Right. So what did people end up choosing out of these 3 options? And why did you choose that thing? And I'm going to let you discuss that while I run away really quickly, because I think my cat just did something bad. And I'm going to be back, but you just keep going and I will return.
Good luck.
So I ignored all of the game's hints about the thugs and thieves being able to dodge and evade, and thus heavy being a bad idea.
Yeah.
And I went with heavy because it did more damage.
Right.
Yeah.
That was my thinking. What about you?
So for me, I went with Soldier's Sword, and I made that decision specifically because I had played Hand of Fate 2 for the first time at PAX, and I chose to use the axe and got to see firsthand how difficult it was to actually successfully take on them bandits. So I
Insider knowledge.
Yes. With my inside baseball knowledge, I was able to make the not necessarily the smarter decision, but just a slightly more tactical decision.
Yeah, I mean, for me, with 3 choices like that, I never saw picking the shield at all. I seemed to handle combat before without a shield, so why would I need it now?
Yeah.
I definitely prefer doing quicker attacks. Definitely since the combat is in the style of the Batman game.
Yeah.
I prefer to just mash. And yeah, it's a damage card of 6, so I mean you get more hits in there, so you're really just doing about the same.
Hey guys, I'm back.
Sure.
Hey.
Cat was
You know
all
which
in one
item you
piece,
chose,
so I
Tony?
think we're all good. Yeah, I did, but I just wanted to ask, Aaron, did you choose the axe again like you did at the PAX panel, or did you wise up?
No, so we just talked about that while you were attending to your feline. I made a tactical decision to avoid the axe this time around and went with the sword instead.
Okay, and Steve, I believe you ended up choosing the axe. Is that correct?
I chose the axe. I ignored the hints. They used the axe because the damage number was bigger. Whereas it sounds like Aaron knows that they ain't fucking around when they say thugs evade heavies.
Yep. Nick, what did you end up picking?
I went Soldier's Sword.
As did I. I was tossing up between the Soldier's Sword and the Shield, but I figured it was probably better to be able to hit a lot of stuff because I have 94 life. I don't know what I'm going to come up against, but I'd much rather be able to hit things than not hit things. I also want to point out that I utterly and completely ignored all of the stat information because I don't care.
I skimmed all of it, if I recall.
Right.
I think at this point I didn't understand what a lot of it meant.
Yep.
Yep.
I think for me the thing was none of these look like a special sort of super duper weapon, so
Yeah, none of them. It doesn't look like there's a right answer here anyway.
Yep.
It doesn't look like they want you to look at this and go, oh, clearly the stats are better on this weapon, so I should take it.
Right.
But it is interesting that Nick pointed out, like, why would I take a shield? I just did combat and I didn't need a shield and I did just fine.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the shield does. Does it? Yeah.
I have no idea either.
So you can
landed on sword.
You can do a bash attack.
Okay, so you could do a stun.
Yeah, right. I believe so.
That makes sense.
And moving well outside the 10 minutes, there are some enemies that you need to bash to get rid of armor that's on them, so that you can then.
You mean Batman cape? Yep, got it.
All right, so here is where I want to put a little bit of my griping hat on. Because the game informs me immediately after I've done this that I can change items in the inventory.
Yep.
And then the little inventory button down in the corner starts flashing.
It pings.
Yeah. And because I am on a controller, that button is ambiguous.
I had a mouse.
In terms of the button label.
It.
So it looks like sort of two windows overlaid on each other's corner kind of button.
So
what it actually wants me to do is it wants me to press the back button.
Yep.
Yes. Or if you were using an Xbox One controller, that would be the icon that you were looking at.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
I think it's the back button.
On your controller. Yes.
Actually, I can't even fucking remember which button it is now. But anyway, I tried to press something and I ended up opening the menu instead. So I got it wrong the first time. And this tendency of me to not understand what button labels are because they're kind of ambiguous or the font is hard to read is going to come back later. This is Chekhov's UI element. We will return to it.
Xbox One controllers, right? Can't live with them.
All right.
Yeah, that button is a nightmare, yes.
Yep.
It never makes sense what that is whenever I see it.
Right. So we're going to keep moving along here. Everybody, I assume, will then move to the third location, which is the Finding Forest Folk card. Your journey through a forest is interrupted by an inquisitive child. Are you searching for the forest folk? My uncle says that they used to walk these woods giving out gifts. I want to find one and ask for a lemon cake. You know, that's actually a much easier voice to speak in.
I was just going to say, like, dedication to the craft.
I'm feeling a compulsion to use different parts of my vocal cords so that I don't fucking cough every other sentence.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
So this card has a token on it. And the dealer points this out by saying, this card has a token on it. Can you find it? Steve, what did you do?
What do you mean, what did I do?
I've watched your playthrough. I know what you did.
It says that there's a token, and I think I tried to click on it.
Because the dealer literally says, can you find it? Aaron, do you remember what you said at the backs panel? We're just name-dropping that thing all day.
Yeah.
No, I don't actually.
You don't remember? You were in the zone because you were playing a game in front of 400 people.
Did I say yes, it's right there?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I successfully Where's Waldo'd it.
This particular delivery I found a little bit curious because it makes it feel like you have to do something to acquire the token when in fact you don't have to do anything at all. And the message the game's trying to tell you is that, yo, you get this even if you die.
Yeah, that didn't make sense to me. I tried to click on it, and then when nothing happened, I think I just continued reading text.
I think you went menu surfing, Steve.
I already dived through the menus quite extensively.
Right.
previously, but yes, I did start clicking other buttons to see if there was like do I drag it somewhere?
Right. So I do understand, like this token is shining and sparkling and rotating slightly. It is by far the prettiest, most shiny thing on the screen.
It is the most press F to pick up thing on the screen. Yeah.
Right. Anyway, there are a few little pages of text. A few little paragraphs of text to read as you continue through. Then we get another 4-card Monty game, again with 3 success cards and 1 failure card. I'm pretty sure I aced this one again.
As did I.
Anyone else? Yep.
Knocked it out of the
I believe I succeeded on this one.
Yep.
And it is at this point that the dealer utters what is easily my favorite line of this entire 10 minutes. Just let me get it right. Every element of the game has been improved, even those that seem at first glance familiar. Do not worry. You will soon understand the nuances.
Yep, that's good.
If you want to have good dev speak coming through a voice actor, that's a pretty good example.
So, no way of achieving it, no.
So the majority of this card to me seems to be, tokens exist. Don't forget the 4-card Monty.
Yeah.
Here's your token. You get them even if you die.
Yeah.
Right. So let's have a think before we move to the 4th and final card, which is trying to sort of wrap up and resolve this challenge. We've had 3 cards that we've moved through so far. The first one has taught us dialogue exists. You can get rewards from options that you choose. Combat is a thing that you have to do.
Yeah.
The next card has taught us, there's inventory and you can pick up items. Which one would you like? The third card has taught us that tokens exist, that you can get tokens that you keep even if you fail the challenge, and a little bit of reminder of the 3-card Monty. The 4th card then, as a resolution, is called the Royal Road, and you end up having to go back into combat again. The question that I have for all of you is, when the game says it's time to fight again, did you have a plan in mind as to how you were going to play the combat section differently from the first time you played it?
No. Run in. Keep hitting everything.
Right?
Yeah, I was very much the same.
Ryan? Steve?
I was intending to be more cautious.
More cautious how?
So, as I mentioned earlier, unlike Batman, once you've started animation, you're committed to it. Which meant that I was trying to not just take every opportunity and then try and be quick enough to stop things, because I knew I couldn't do that.
Yes.
That didn't work out so great, if I recall correctly, because I chose the axe, and the axe is even slower now. Yep. But I was trying to be more aware of what the other enemies are doing.
Right. I'm surprised, Aaron and Nick, that you were just like, no, just run in and spam, because I very distinctly recall that for me, I was going, this time I'm going to try and track down enemies who are by themselves and try and prioritize them. And I'm going to take a far more measured and slow-paced approach to attacking.
Okay.
So like probably a second or maybe a little bit more in between actually pressing buttons at all.
Yeah.
Part of this is because I'm a lot older than all of you and my reflexes are getting noticeably slower. So I wanted to give myself an opportunity to actually be able to successfully repel attacks when it tells me that I can.
Yeah.
Mixed success on that front.
Nice.
And the other thing that I'd intentionally chosen the sword because it felt to me like that was going to be an upgrade that was most similar to the way that I was fighting previously. So I wasn't going to be trying to figure out a new weapon style in addition to trying out a different tempo of attacking.
Right.
Cool. So now that I've drastically overshared my strategy, let's talk about the setup here. of the Royal Road. A trail of fallen leaves and distraught farmers leads you to the thieves who had stolen your amulet. It seems their infighting has only gotten worse. The bandits surround their former leader, weapons drawn. And the Four of Greed card and the Leader card appear again. Everyone will get their fair share. There's no need for violence, the leader implores. Whoever heard of a thief talk about fair shares, spits one. You turn up and boss us around, we've barely stabbed anyone. It's been days since I've stabbed someone. Days! I have no idea if this is similar or different to the dialogue that you gentlemen were reading.
That's dead on.
It's the same.
Yeah.
Right. The leader notices you approach and waves you over. As much as I'd love to continue this discussion regarding stabbings, I'm afraid I have urgent business with my associate here. As he greets you, he whispers, "Keep me alive, and there'll be plenty of gold for your trouble." The two options: tell him gold cannot replace the amulet he stole, or tell him he will pay in blood for his thievery. And it is worth noting that the leader card has now shifted from the bottom right with the Four of Greed across to the bottom left, thus implying a change of allegiance. Law and order noise. What did you choose and why? Nick?
So for me, I cycled through these two for a little bit.
Right.
Before ultimately coming up with the first option, which was gold cannot replace the amulet you stole.
Yep.
I like to think that on some level, aside from being the jerk in this run, that I do actually have some allegiance to my father's memory and what I'm trying to get. Like, my goal is to get this amulet back. Right?
Okay, so you're Dom from The Fast and the Furious. Got it.
Sure. Yeah, we can go with that. Yeah, I'm just jumping and shit.
Steve, what did you choose and why?
I also went back and forward a bit. I settled on gold cannot replace the amulet. That was mostly because the alternative seemed like I was just going to straight murder the fool rather than get paid. So I went with the option that seems like I'm
classic programmer,
paid.
Steve. Classic programmer.
Yeah. I've already killed like 8 people. I don't need to kill another one.
You're well on your way to being Nathan Drake. Aaron, what did you choose and why?
I went with option 2. I told him he was going to pay in blood for his thievery because, as far as I was concerned, that was all I cared about was getting the amulet back.
Okay.
Nothing more.
Right. So a lawful good murderer. Got it.
Pretty much.
Lawful good, but capital punch.
Yeah.
And I went
Yep.
with the first option as well. So I'm going to read that one because it's in front of me. He holds up a finger. First rule of negotiation, never let them know what you want. Kill my associates and I will gladly return your amulet. Ever reliable, the thieves draw their blades to mug you. The leader hurries away to hide. And it's fighting time. So everybody got to go back into combat again. And I believe that all of us were fighting 4 thugs.
Correct.
Did anybody else get the option to give the thieves all of your food and gold?
I don't believe I did.
No, I don't think so.
Nick, you were given that option?
I did.
Did you fight them or did you give them all your food and gold?
I fought them, and if I'm correct, I didn't even think twice.
That's a bummer because that's exactly what I did as well. So I was hoping that one of us would have tried bribing them. Because I had 13 food and 10 gold left, and I didn't even think about going, have all of it.
Yeah, at this point, I had 19 food and 10 gold left, and I just I went for fighting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Curious. So I like to think that that maybe I made this choice because I had a very clear idea in mind of I'm trying combat again so that I can do these things and see how that works. That's my excuse. That's my post-rationale, and I'm sticking with it.
Right.
Did anyone die in the second round of combat?
Nah.
Pardon me. I came very close. Would you like to hear why?
Yes, please do.
Okay, cool. So even though I had this particular strategy in mind, and I managed to follow it with a reasonable degree of success, at one point a character drops to their knees and an icon appeared over their head.
Uh-huh.
And I couldn't tell what the icon was. And because I couldn't tell what it was, I got kind of confused, and then I got the shit kicked out of me. So it turns out that this character who I'd hit, who was kneeling, the icon above them was left trigger, but the font is so small that it kind of looks like a badly drawn pi symbol.
Oh man,
Where's
that's
my key?
a totally different game, but I'm very into it.
And I could tell because of the pose and the highlight and the arrow pointing to this thug that I could finish them off, but I didn't know which button to press, and I got so flustered that I then started getting hit a lot, and I went from about 70 health all the way down to embarrassingly close to dead.
I had a similar thing on keyboard. It's saying to press F, which I didn't do a couple of times. I had multiple enemies who did this, which resulted in me standing next to them trying to hit them, being unable to.
Right.
Which seems super weird to me. This wasn't what I was expecting.
Yep.
Is when they're in this state, they're invulnerable unless you do the special finisher.
Yep.
So
all of these buttons and labels are given to you at the very start of the first combat with a single screen that shows you all of the button mappings and layouts. But I don't remember any of them because that was like 5 minutes ago. Yeah.
I mean, I remembered the buttons. I was flustered for a different reason. I was flustered because I didn't expect that I had to do a special finishing move for a random enemy that happened to have fallen over. I assumed that was like bonus points for doing special finishing moves, not they're magically invulnerable now.
Right. Well, I went, pardon me, I went all the way from pretty much 70 health down to 23.
That's not good.
No, it wasn't. Before I managed to kill everyone else. And Steve, there was something else that I noticed while you were playing here as well, and I'm curious as to whether you recognize this had happened while you were playing it. You maxed out your weapon combo, and you didn't use your weapon ability.
Nope.
Yep, because your two-handed axe, you have to stack 6 consecutive hits in a row without taking a hit.
Yep.
And all of that font and the icon of your axe turns yellow and sort of shimmers a little bit, but you didn't use it.
I didn't notice it when I was playing.
Yep.
Because I was focused on why is the kneeling person invulnerable?
Right.
And trying to keep all of the enemies as far away from me as possible because I had realized at this point that I was still being too greedy and not allowing them to come to me. So I just wanted them to be out of range of me at all times.
Yep.
I think also at this point I had realized that there is another button for a different attack, like a light and a heavy.
Right.
And I was trying to figure out if there was a better way of using them.
Okay. Did anyone else get to the point where they maxed out their weapon combos and got to use their weapon ability?
I mean, my weapon got shiny, but I had no indication of how to use it.
Yep. Nick?
I did in the first combat bit, but I didn't in the second.
Okay. I didn't even realize that this was a thing that was possible at all until quite a way after my 10 minutes.
Right.
I think it might have actually been fighting another boss later on where I suddenly realized, wait a minute, why is that yellow? Wait a minute, does that mean I can do something? What button is it? And then I had to open up a menu and go to key bindings and find out what it was. So it's a little bit odd. Some of my confusion is coming from font. Some of it was coming from the fact that the first time that I'm running across this is in the thick of combat when I'm thinking about a million different things.
Sure.
Without the opportunity of it going, just take a knee for a moment and let me explain to you about weapon finishes or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Seems like a curious choice given the very deliberate structure and pacing of this introductory challenge, but I figured it out eventually. So everyone survived with varying degrees of success. And when we're taken back to the dealer's carriage and we're looking at the table, we are then told, with the battle resolved, the thief leader nods in approval at the carnage before him. He holds out a hand. The name is Malaclips, Bard Extraordinaire. His smile fades under your withering glare. Sensing your anger, he raises his hands in surrender. Wait, let's not be hasty. Does anyone remember why we're doing this thing? That was me talking, not what the card said.
Yeah, I was going to say, that doesn't sound like what he said.
Yeah, Daddy's amulet.
Yeah, I want my amulet.
Correct. We're on the same side here. I'm an upstanding citizen, just like you. Bloody, 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 blah. And eventually you get to the point where you're like, no, seriously, dude, the amulet. So, essentially, Malaclips then offers you an amulet, and you go, that's not it. And then he pulls out a whole bunch of them and goes, oh, it must be one of these. Which one is yours? And then we're presented with 4 cards to choose from.
Yeah, and so left to right, that is a lion's face, a pharaoh's face.
Yes.
What looks like an ox.
Yep.
And an eagle.
Yeah.
And it looks like there's
choose
also...
wisely.
Yeah, it says choose your father's amulet at the bottom of the screen.
Yep.
But there's also there's elements behind
Yes.
those character portraits as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the lion has a sun and birds flying. The pharaoh has star and moon. The ox has what looks like grains of wheat.
Yep.
And the eagle looks like it has rocks.
Yes.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Falling boulders. So who chose what and why?
I was running out of time in my 10 minutes. So I didn't spend as long thinking about this as much as I perhaps would have, but I believe I ended up choosing the ox with the wheat.
Okay.
For me, out of any of those, I went straight to eagle.
Yep.
I want to say it's what I identified with first when I first got presented with this challenge way back when.
Uh-huh.
And now every time I play through this, it's my instant. So yeah.
Are you afraid something bad will happen if you choose a different option?
Maybe. I've been playing it that much, so I'm just going to keep going with the good old.
Right. Aaron?
So I too went with the eagle. I mistook it both times that I played through for the first time as a crow/raven.
Right.
I should have been looking closer at the beak. But I went with that specifically because it was the only one of the 4 that I could see that wasn't immediately connotative with masculinity.
Right.
Okay. So yeah, that was what motivated my choice for that.
Cool. I went with lion because I really like Liam Neeson. Let's move on.
Sure.
Yep.
So that's a deep pull. So what I discovered, because I've reviewed everybody's footage, is that while this is a kind of like an expressive choice that is based purely around aesthetics or what appeals to you, we're about to get thrown into a character customizer here, and the option of the amulet that you select actually appears to correspond to what sort of racial identity your character has when they pull back the hood to reveal themselves, and then you have the option to customize them. Thoughts? Don't all speak at once, gentlemen.
I hadn't really picked up on that until you were speaking before the show, Tony.
Yep.
I thought race was due to the location that you choose in this character customization, whether you're from the city, from the woods.
Yes, you can change it as one of the options when you go into the customizer.
Yeah.
But... and I mean, I'm basing this on 3 data points because we didn't get to see Steve in the customizer. But that does appear to be what is happening. Although, given there's 3 data points, the laws of probability could be fucking me over.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that amulet that you choose in the game before you're presented with this customization screen is what you are when you're unveiled?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yep. I spent the rest of my 10 minutes in the character customizer, and I believe, Nick, you ended up spending the rest of your time in the character customizer.
Yes, I did.
And rather hilariously, Nick, I think other than us having different amulets, we both ended up choosing exactly the same character with exactly the same hairdo, with exactly the same hair color, and exactly the same clothing color, which is weird. I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
That's weird.
It is weird.
Aaron, You managed
Yes.
to defeat the character customizer boss and continue
Correct.
on into the rest of the game. Can you talk us through that experience?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, so the character that I chose, I went with the darker skin tone that was available. I
Yep.
chose a hairstyle that was braided dreadlocks that were flowing quite far down my back. I
Yep,
went with
same hairstyle as Nick and I chose as well.
Cool. Pure white hair.
Yep.
I reopened the amulet choice and continued. I'll continue with my original choice of fuck it, it's Raven as far as I'm considered. And then chose a pink and white clothing style from there. From here, I got to do something in my 10 minutes that you gentlemen did not get to do.
Yay.
I got to play some dice, which was fun. It was a fun little thing that I did. I can't remember the actual the situation that placed me inside of there, but essentially, no, that's right. It was I think it was arm wrestling was what I was doing. There was some situation where I was challenged, and I was given dice to roll. At which point using the controller, I needed to like hold it back until I could feel haptics giving me tension, and then I pressed the A button, I think, or the X button to release the dice. There's a target number that I'm looking to get, and so this number was 10 for this particular thing, and I think that was like sort of corresponding to the arm strength of my opponent. So I was looking to have a higher arm strength than they did. But the interesting thing is that I'm able to roll these dice again after going through the initial roll.
So it's a bit of a Yahtzee thing here where you can pick dice to re-roll to try and get a better roll. Yep.
Yeah, and so I've got one roll remaining, and so my initial roll landed me with 7, 1 on 5, and two snake eyes. Naturally I chose the 2 snake eyes to roll again because if 6 is the highest that we can get, 5 is a pretty good outcome. So I rolled those two again, and that took my final score above 10. I can't remember where I ended up fully. I think it was somewhere around the 12 mark.
Right.
And the video footage that I'm reviewing just crashed on me, so I can't tell you.
So, Steve.
Yeah.
Have you played any dice in Hand of Fate 2 yet?
No, I have not played more than my 10 minutes.
Okay, cool. What if I told you that you're rolling 3d6?
Hey, okay.
Yep. So, to your magic math coder programmer brain, what does your probability spider sense sort of tell you when you're rolling 3d6 instead of 2d6?
Well, it's not 7 anymore.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What is it?
That should be 10, shouldn't it? I'm trying to picture the table in my head, and I can't remember what the numbers are.
It's very
10,
different from 2d6.
Yes, 10 seems more than probable.
Yes. And curiously, the target of this very first 3 dice challenge is 10, which to me, when I saw it outside of my 10 minutes, I went, 10? That's impossible even for a computer, because I assumed it was going to be 2d6.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't, and then I realized, oh shit, all of my dice instincts for how likely things are completely useless here because it's 3 instead of 2.
Yeah.
Take that. Your craps will serve you nothing here.
Yeah. Which I thought was interesting because you could pick any number of dice to use for these particular things. The other thing that I think is worth noting here is that I think there are 6 dice on the table, or perhaps more, but you only pick up 3 of them. Yes. So there's an implication here that you can potentially roll more.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of things in my head that happened when I discovered that dice rolling existed in this game. One of them was, how do I get more dice? Mm-hmm. And the other one was, every time the game gives me any opportunity ever to stack dice rolls in my favor, I'm going to take it over every other option that the game gives me forever, every time.
Why is that?
Because in the 4-card Monty, I can use my eyes to try and track what's going on.
Right.
And if I get it wrong, I feel like I just didn't concentrate hard enough. Whereas if it goes, yo, it's dice rolling time, you need a 14, I'm like, well, that's shit.
Right.
So if there's anything I can do to add to that, I'm just going to take it every time. Because these dice rolls are tied to cards. The card location's on the map. I mean, you want to clear the whole map, or that's the way that I tend to play.
Yep.
And I don't know what a card is before I end up on it. And I'm probably not going to get a chance to go, no dice for me, thanks. And I don't know what the penalties are going to be. So anything where it is purely a game of chance, even though I get rerolls. I mean, if 3d6 tells me, you need a 15, I'm like, fuck off. Whereas if it goes, you need a 15 and we'll add blah to your roll, I'm like, I'm listening.
Yep. Yeah, totally.
I don't know how well that's going to serve me long term when I'm playing this game, but that was my immediate response to realizing that dice rolling existed.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, Aaron,
Yes.
you beat somebody at arm wrestling.
I did.
You got a sweet, sweet reward of some gold, I believe.
I did. I got about 10 of them.
Out of that. Nice. And conveniently, I believe that your objective for this particular part of the second map is to accumulate gold so that you can pay back a debt that Malaclips has accrued.
That's right. It's make bank time.
Yay!
Yep. I'm on my way.
And I think you managed to move one more card, which was to a bridge over troubled water.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yep.
And Simon and Garfunkel proceeded to tell me a little bit about what I was encountering there, but it was during that I hit my 10 minutes.
Okay. I am pleased that you brought up Simon and Garfunkel because I'm anticipating that you have also written a Simon and Garfunkel ditty to sing to us.
Nope.
Oh man,
Nope.
That's
They're not fans of video games.
All right, so we roughly all sort of ended up vaguely in the same area. Steve was about to customize a character. Nick and I were creepily creating doppelgangers of each other.
Yeah.
And Aaron, having some extra experience under his belt from playing this 10 minutes previously at PAX, was just barreling on along into the next map. So there are 4 of us talking here, so the episodes run a little long. What I would like to hear from somebody who isn't me is a little bit of a recap of all of the things that the game has instructed us on. One might say we're doing a 10-minute check of what the game is about and how to play it.
Why don't we go one for one? Let's ping pong around.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
4-card Monty. Ping.
Yes, you did that.
What has that taught you?
Pong.
What does that taught me? What does that taught me is that events that come up that could, in a realistic sense, result in success or failure for me, is not something that I will always be in control of in terms of my ability to fight back.
Right.
Sometimes, if the event calls for, in a D&D sense, if we return to D&D sense, the idea of like requiring athleticism or a dexterity check. The 4-card Monty is going to serve me in that. However, as dice gets introduced later on, I'm ponging on myself. Dice roll is something that could potentially be introduced as a different way to potentially succeed or fail at these events that I'm not able to resolve on my own.
So the other thing that the 4-card Monty says to me is that you are never going to get better at this. You're just going to have to concentrate.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just like at a certain point, you are releasing yourself to fate. You are allowing yourself to be in the hand of fate. I can do it.
Whoa. Nice.
So there are things that are chance checks.
Yep.
And there are things that you do that are skill checks.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the fighty fight, which you can be better at and you can do well at.
Yep.
So there are things that you can control and things that you can't control.
Yep.
We have learned that there will be potentially branching narrative.
Yeah.
Whether that results in large branches of story where that is unclear.
Yep.
But I think that's what that tells us is that your choices will change how minor things unfold, because the way that major things unfold, I'm assuming is similar to Hand of Fate 1 in that it's the cards that have been drawn on the table are determining the major events.
Right.
whereas dialogue is minor.
Yep. And the dialogue options exist nested within those cards that have been laid out. Yep. Yeah, Nick?
It's made pretty evident that resource management is a big thing in Hand of Fate, even if you're coming into Hand of Fate 2 new.
Yeah.
So one of the earlier choices that we get is whether we're going to play the jerk or going to play the good morale citizen. We gain that food. We have that as a resource.
You say that. I can see you looking in our direction, in my direction.
But yeah, we can see that we have to be mindful of health. We have to be mindful of our food. We have to be mindful of our gold, and all of those affect each other. Specifically, the health and the food option, and that's further portrayed through our movement through each floor. Each move takes away food. We get plus health. It's a big juggling game that we have to keep track of.
Totally.
Right. And I think the other thing that's worth pointing out here, in terms of how to play the game, I mean, I don't want to relitigate the fact that some of the buttons were a bit hard to read, but I think it's worth pointing out that there are 22 challenges in this game, all told. And
that would be in line with tarot.
Yep. I've played a couple of hours of this so far, and there are a ton of different resource types and other limitations and other things that you're trying to accumulate. And there's deck building elements, and there's a whole bunch of other things that all layer on top of what we've already experienced in this introductory stage. And it's quite clear that if the game was trying to front load all of it, there would be way too much to either hold in your head or to convey in a small scale scenario and still have it make any form of sense.
Yeah.
So I think the rationing. Yep. So the rationing of what is being included in this first 10 minutes section, I think, is quite deliberate, and it does seem to be building from the basics and then sort of branching out from there as it goes. And to circle all the way back around to kind of the early stages of our conversation, what is the game about?
Playing a game.
Making choices, killing people.
It's about playing a game.
I mean, if none of you are going to say it, I mean, I can say it. It's about player choice, isn't it?
Yep.
Yes. and the interesting ones. No, I mean, like it's literally about playing a game. It's and all of the mythological ephemera that could go along with that.
Yep. All right. So early on, we discussed kind of the role or the intent of the dealer. Are they trying to redeem themselves? Are they trying to gain revenge, etc., etc.? So maybe we sort of talk about that same sort of thing, but for the player that we are embodying, what are they trying to achieve? What are they trying to do? Because if we're going to run with the logic of we're here to play a game, saying that the player is here to play is kind of obvious and a little bit on the nose. Why do we play? I mean, why do they play? Damn, I showed my hand. Ha, ha, ha.
Too many puns.
Yeah. Like, look, it could be like. I mean, like, I think that's up to you. I think that's up to the interpreter. Like, I know that's a bullshit cop out answer, but for my part, it's the sort of thing is like I do definitely get the sense that the dealer is there because they must be. I also get the sense that I am here because I must be. I don't get. Yep. I have to continue. I have to press on. Which filters in well to the game's, roguelike ingredients. The idea that this is something that I'm going to return to. Yes, I will return to it because I have to. There is nothing else that I can do but this. And that's just my personal reading on it. But I think it is very much like the fact that like assigning you the Fool Tarot card and putting you on a blank slate is very much inviting you to author your own emotional trajectory and your own emotional motivation through this entire scenario. It will give you little objectives, things that you're seeking to achieve, but largely in terms of what you're trying to get out of this, that's for you to decide.
Nick.
Yeah, just kind of moving a little bit away from that. I think it's kind of full circle because I totally agree that the dealer has to be here. There's no other way that works. But then I think that that's also why we're here. We have to be here because the dealer needs us here to finish his job. He can't do it by himself. Otherwise, nothing happens in this world without us. So yeah, that's how I look at it.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah, that's good.
Steve?
Only thing I had to add to that is that I really liked the opening of the game when you actually click start. Is it a campfire? And it looks like it's possibly very early morning. And so you starting the game is you going, we camped here for the night, but we have to keep going.
Yep.
And you get back in the caravan and you keep playing and moving towards your goal. And so yeah, we're sort of reinforcing that there is an imperative that you and the dealer need to get to somewhere.
Yeah.
And you can't go fast, but you have to keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
And in terms of my take on this, I think that this is offering me, Tony, the chance to go, why am I playing this game?
Mm-hmm.
And my response to that is because I want to find out what the possibility space is, and I want to see where it leads.
Yeah, cool.
I want to see how the story resolves and where it ends up. This is a place that I must return to in between bouts of playing Destiny 2.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and I think
pretty
like
much how
I
I've
think
been playing this game.
And I think to wrap it up, like that's sort of we're all sort of moving around similar notions there of that idea of obligation and necessity, and that even wanting to explore the possibility space and find out where the story ends up, you are still binding yourself to an obligation to continue with it. It's almost like that idea of like the ever-present pursuit of mystery for human beings. It's that idea of like we have the possibility to reach a level of heightened understanding, enlightenment at the end of this journey. So therefore we are compelled to continue with it, regardless.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm going to say that is the 10-minute check concluded. Steve, that means that it's time for the plugs.
It is. Welcome to the plugs. If you've enjoyed this episode, or not, either way, we'd love to hear any thoughts you have. You could email those to us. The email address would be contact@thefirst10minutes.com. You also could find us on many social medias. That would be Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, Libsyn, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, Patreon, Like-Minded. I think that's all of them now. And in all of those places, we are the first 10 minutes. So
Nothing if not consistent. Yep.
And let us know what you think. Also, if you are not aware, for us repeatedly saying it, we apologize. There's stuff on YouTube that we do now as well. There are videos there, Let's Plays, if you will.
Yes.
That you might also enjoy if you want to hear our voices.
Correct. Hopefully coughing less than I have been this time around.
Potentially potentially more, potentially less. You'll have to watch all of them to find out.
Hey, I got another question for you, Steve.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up. I'm a hard-hitting journalist.
Okay.
If I'm going to get in touch with you on the internet, how do I do that?
For me, you can find me on Twitter at _Steve Helliwell, or you can find me via my website, which is stevehelliwell.com. How about you, Tony?
I'm glad you asked, Steve. I really like this back and forth that we've got, excluding the other two members of the podcast from speaking. If you want to get in touch with me, you can find me on Twitter at Kalinskald. That's KALINSKALD. I also do another podcast where I interview game developers about what makes them tick. It's called Downloadable Context, and you can predictably find it at downloadablecontext.com. Hey, Nick. People want to get in touch with you on the internet. How do they do that?
Best and easiest way to reach out would be Twitter. My handle's at Nick Staracek. That's NICSTARACEK. Otherwise, if you want to see what I'm doing in just game dev general sort of stuff, my website is nicholas-staracek.com, and you can find it all there.
Woo!
Aaron.
Hey, Aaron.
Hi.
It's your turn.
I think Nick was actually trying to get in touch with me.
Hey, Aaron, how do I get in touch with you?
Hey, Nick. Well, we're talking right now. What's up?
Oh, not much, man.
Okay. Well, if you would like to talk to me further after this, You can find me on Twitter. My handle is @rundownflamingo. That's RUNDOWNFLAMINGO. Similarly,
Right.
if you don't want to talk to me, but you'd like to know more about what I think about narrative design in video games, you can head on over to @pushingb on Twitter, or I would much prefer you just visit the website directly at pushingb.com.
Cool bananas. Hey, I just want to point out, everyone, 100 episodes. I think that's
good.
worth a virtual high five, but not a round of applause. Otherwise, Steve will accidentally crop
Yeah, I'll
the
cut it.
episode
I'll cut you
early.
right out.
So- So congrats, yay us. And I also want to say a big thank you, Nick, for joining us on this grand adventure.
Yes, thank you.
I hope that this has been even more amazing to be a part of recording it, as it is no doubt to listening to the episodes.
Oh, most definitely. Thanks for having me.
I hope it hasn't spoiled the magic.
No, definitely not.
Fantastic. All right, so that's all for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you again next time.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.